Mac with them Birds 365. We got Scott Grayson from Fox 29 to jump in with us this morning. Scott, I didn't ask John this in the first segment. I meant to, but we got off on a tangent talking Eagles football. Funny how that works on Birds 365. Announced attendance, amount of people in the stands. Because I did not go. I watch it on TV like everybody else, like most of the Delaware Valley. And it wasn't exactly a roaring, raucous crowd. It didn't come across that way on television. Whole bunch of people, no shows last night?
Yeah, there definitely was that, and I think one thing that I did notice, which I'm not surprised by, you see more kids in the audience for preseason games than you do during the regular season for very obvious reasons. The raucous crowd, the language you'll hear isn't quite the same. So that's what I noticed. It was more family-ish last night for the people that were there. And I think that's frankly what, that's the game you say, hey, I'm going to take my young son or my family to just to go see what it's like. But yeah, you didn't have a huge crowd there. And I think, everybody obviously at this point is going, hey, it's finally over and we can move on to regular season football. But it is interesting that I heard you guys talking before I came on. I mean, the overwhelming sense you get when you go in the locker room after that particular game is, guys, trying to hope their dream comes true and they get to make a roster. And if not here, did they do enough on film to get it somewhere else? And that's, I think, what you take away. You remember that these people are human beings and, they have dreams and they want to make that money too. And they want to live it out. And that's what they're fighting for.
Yeah, that part is true, Scott, and certainly guys like Tyreek Maddox Williams, who's a local kid, is from the area, was very excited, rightfully so. I mean, Ben Sumarin with 175 tackles. I forget what the final number was. I mean, that's cool.
All you got to do is knock off the 5. You would have had it right, John.
Yeah. Devin Allen making some plays. It's always cool for guys like that. And the best part of being in the locker room after the last preseason game is these guys are so happy to talk. Because they're not used to it. We're always bogging down Kelsey and Lane and Jalen Hurts after games. And these guys get their moment. It's actually pretty cool. That part of it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's a shame you go through the game because, I mean, that game last night in particular really felt like it was dragging. I mean, the last 2 minutes of the first half felt like it took a half hour. And you get it. The coaches are working situations with these guys. And look, it does matter. I mean, anybody who wants to say the third quarterback battle doesn't matter can just look back at the San Francisco 49ers last year and say, it really does matter. But when you're in the middle of it here in the preseason and your number 1 and number 2 are healthy, you're going –
well, I would argue, though, Scott, it wasn't a battle. I mean, Tanner McKee.
No, I agree. It was the wrong word to use, but it was something to watch. So,
Tanner, by the way, you kind of saw, I think he took a step back a little bit from the first 2 preseason games. People were really excited, thinking maybe he could push Marcus Mariota for the backup job, who did not have a great summer. But you kind of saw, you forget he's a 6th-round pick and he's playing against 3rd and 4th teamers, and he made some plays and you could see the upside, but he also missed some passes. But that's nice to have with your 3rd-string quarterback versus your 1st-string quarterback, who was missing throws all over for poor Shane Steichen, and he's got to go into an NFL season with Anthony Richardson. I mean, he's playing against the Eagles, mainly 3rd-teamers, a couple 2nd-teamers, Terrell Edmonds, Justin Evans at safety, most notably the linebackers. But, boy, that wasn't impressive from the Colts standpoint. And, they're winning whatever. It was 17-13 at halftime. Like, that's a win. If people are saying, Nick Sirianni, and I brought it up, is 1-6-2 in the preseason. When your 3rd string plays the 1st string of the other team, the 17-13, that's a win for your organization.
Yeah, and I think that the most impressive thing I saw from Anthony Richardson was his speed. When he did break the pocket and he started moving, he had the legs. But, John, I agree with you. His timing with his receivers, he and Michael Pittman were not on the same page at all. The throws were it's sometimes not even in the right zip code of the receiver he was aiming for. Yeah, there's a lot that I think they know they're going to have to unpack on film to get ready for the season with that. But yeah, and then the Colts have their issue. You're right, though. That was something that I did take away at halftime was look up and go, the Eagles have, like you said, third teamers out there, and they're holding this first string to a respectable, very competitive score.
Yeah.
All right, I'll throw a guy out who I thought made the team last night. Probably was on the outside looking in before last night's game. No, they value the joint practices more than they do the actual game, but I thought the kid looked really good to me, and I think he reversed his status. Tell me if you agree or disagree, and if not, give me someone else who would fall into that category. I think Eli Ricks made the team. I thought he was their best cover guy last night. I don't think they'll get him through to the practice squad. If he gets cut, I think he's going to get scooped up. I think he made the team last night. Yay or nay?
I'll go first, John. I would agree with that. I thought he look, some of those incompletions and bad throws by Richardson were because of Ricks. There was one possession I think he threw at Ricks multiple times in a row. And they were not completed. He either got a hand on the ball or was in such tight coverage that Richardson decided to try to overthrow and put it where only maybe his receiver might be able to track it down, and it floated out of bounds. So, no, I thought he had a great night last night. And like you said, the question is whether it's enough. And you even went further, Jody, and it is part of what these coaching staffs have to figure out with, Howie. If we let a guy go, can we get him back on the practice squad? And he's a guy, you're right, who if you choose to take that chance, and we all know how he will be a gambler from time to time, that he might not come back to you. And I agree with you, Jody. I thought he had a good night. I thought he was right there step for step with every receiver. And again, this was when we're talking about the Colts number ones. He was going up against number ones.
Michael Pittman, yep.
Pittman and Pierce, too. He had a nice play
against
Pierce.
So I thought, I agree with you, Jody. I thought he had a good night, and I think he should make the 53. How about you, John?
I'm gonna stay thumbs down. I think the numbers game is it's too much to overcome. I think I will say this: he made me hesitate. That's what I hate about the preseason game, because we do this roster pool every year amongst the beat guys, and I'm like, I say to myself coming into that last game, Scott, I say, don't pay attention. Don't pay attention. Don't. I saw every practice. Mekhi Gardner had a better summer than Eli Ricks. Eli made a couple splashy plays in the preseason, the pick six against a fourth string quarterback in Baltimore, and then last night against better players. So he did make me hesitate, but outside, and he's a strictly outside corner. He can't play inside in the slot. You have Slay, you have Bradbury, you have Josh Jobe, who's made the team. You have Kaylee Ringo, who's going to make the team, even though,
By the way, Ricks was better than Ringo.
Yeah, Ringo.
All summer, not just last night either. The only reason why Ringo's going to make the team is because he was a fourth-round pick.
Correct. He has not had a good summer either, but he's going to make the team. That there's no doubt about it. And then you start talking Maddox as your fifth corner, as the slot guy. Then you need the backup for Avonte Maddox. And to me, that's where Mario Goodrich comes in, who didn't dress, but he does have a groin injury. You also have Josiah Scott, and people forget about, and he's got versatility. And as I said, Gardner had a better summer. I think he's look, they won him on the practice squad, and could he be claimed? Yeah, I guess. But the Eagles, as one of the deepest teams in football, probably get 2 or 3 players claimed. I think people overstate that and say, oh, they're going to get everybody claimed. Generally doesn't work that way, because other teams are working with their own young guys that they like, and they have a head start on them. So I think they'll be able to get him back on the practice squad. I think he made me hesitate, which is what you want to do for the coaching staff as well in the preseason. But that numbers game is just really difficult for him.
So I would agree with that.
we'll see how it shakes out at the corner spot. I thought one of the interesting things, I didn't know what they're going to do at linebacker. I knew Nakobe wasn't going to play, and I thought Cummings wasn't going to play, and he didn't. But I also thought there was a possibility he may just do the one series thing. This, again, question for both you guys, John. I know it's your ballywick because you got to make these decisions for your upcoming 53 men. How many linebackers are they going to keep?
Well, I was talking about those roster games, and you can talk to this guy, but they might only keep 3. I mean, because they can play games with Nicholas Morrow. Like he's another guy. He's bested, so he doesn't have to go through waivers. So he's a guy you could go up to and say, "Hey, we love you. We want you here, but we need this roster spot. As soon as we put insert name on injured reserve, we'll bring you back. You'll be there week 1 in Foxborough, but we don't have a spot right now." He could be a candidate to be that guy. The only 3 locked into me are Nakobe Dean, Zach Cunningham, and Christian Ellis. And let's just say that's not the deepest position on the team. And I think, by the way, Tyreek Maddox-Williams, I think he made the practice squad on 1 game. And Nick Sirianni joked, I don't know if you were in Nick's press conference, Scott, but
I got in halfway through.
Somebody, Olivia from the Inquirer, asked him, what was your message to Tyreek Maddox-Williams? And Nick said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Coach Sirianni." He just met the guy. There's not much you can say, but in that difficult circumstance, he really, like, he should have picked up Anthony Richardson. Like, he dropped an interception, and then the interception he did get should have been a pick 6 if he didn't bobble it, and sort of let people get the catch up to him. But he really, really played well. He deserves a lot of credit.
Oh, absolutely. And he was a joy to talk to in the locker room too.
Yeah.
It was one of those guys who truly appreciated the opportunity that he had. He, had family, had 20 family members in the stands, he said. And look, that's a memory nobody will ever be able to take away from him, ever, no matter what happens in the next week. And I think that's when you see the human being side of these people, and you remember they are human beings. And for him, I was certainly happy for him that he had that, and for his family that they had the opportunity to see it. And I think you're right. He probably at least made the practice squad of this team based on that, because he didn't have much time to study a playbook or understand much of the play, other than his basic knowledge, and he was in the right place.
He looked like he knew how to play linebacker, and you can't say that about all the Eagles linebackers.
No, agreed. And we all know that, kind of go back to Jody's question, how he loves to scour these cut wire, the cuts. And I would not hesitate to think that there might be a linebacker out there he would toy with bringing in. That is one position I think he will be watching heavily for, to see who is cut from some of these rosters and think about bringing in. Because they're not, we all agree, they're not settled. They're not going into this going, yep, this is it. We got the best linebacking group we could possibly have. And I think that's a place they'll watch the cut wires for.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah. I think they're happy with Zach Cunningham. I think, I think they might have got lucky with that one, because I think there's still something left in the tank. And he was a really good player in Houston before some of the injuries took over. So maybe they luck out. One thing we haven't talked about, we should talk about, and both of you, is Aaron Cepas, because I think everybody doesn't want him. And I see that reaction from you guys. But I'm going to tell you, I think he's locked in, and this is why. Jake Elliott, 59 and 52.
Yeah,
he is just comfortable with Aaron Cepas as a holder. And to me, that's more important that he's banging through 59-yarders, because they don't punt anyway. Every time they get over the 50, they go for it.
It's true.
Now,
hold on. Time out, Philadelphia. Let me go down to McMullen Road, because John likes to say nobody cares about stopping the run until you have to stop the run. Yet nobody cares about punting until the second half of the Super Bowl, John.
Yeah. But, I think the Eagles' mistake to me in the Super Bowl, and I don't want to re-legislate it, but he was out whatever 7 weeks before that, and they kind of played the loyalty card. They shouldn't have played him. They should have played Brett Kern, who was
How
great.
bad was Brett Kern?
He was bad, but he wouldn't have punted it the wrong way. And that was all that was the issue. So he would have probably punted it 40 yards and maybe get a 10-yard return. And who knows what happens from there. But I think the Eagles organization made a mistake trying to be loyal and saying, well, this is our guy. Let's get him back for the Super Bowl. They probably shouldn't have done that. But I went through it with Blair Walsh. He was an all-pro kicker. I probably told this story. He was an all-pro kicker, and they changed his holder, and he completely fell apart. Completely fell apart. So I've seen it before. And in Baltimore, when Ty Zettner held, he missed the kick. And it was a long kick. I forget what it was. Do you remember, Jody? It was 48, 40. But he missed it. He's banging through 59-yarders and 52-yarders like they're nothing.
The ones he made last night would have been good from 60.
Yeah.
That 59-yarder was impressive. I mean, and it's funny, John, because when you said that was my thought last night. As I looked down after the kicks were made, I'd go back with my eyes and look at Jake, and there's Siposs right there with him. And I had that brief thought about he does hold a vital role on that side, and and you're right. People may not think about it, but that is it's like a long snapper, man. That's a weird position to have to be able to be good at it. It's not just you just insert player here and hey, put your hand up and catch the ball and put it down, stripes, laces out
and by the way, sometimes it's more the kicker. If the kicker's just competent in him, sometimes it's in his head.
But I did see, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sifting through the cobwebs sitting here this morning. I haven't had enough coffee yet, but I think Siposs did have a short punt again last night.
His actual job was not great.
So you have, and that's where I go back to. It's really a hard question, right? I mean, the trade-off of asking Jake Elliott to get used to a new holder versus being able to stomach one of those kicks that could give the other team a shorter field. It's going to be a tough decision, I think, for the front office in that regard.
Here's what bothers me, because you said about the Super Bowl last year, John, they probably shouldn't have made a change, bring back Siposs. He wasn't ready. Kern was bad. There's not good enough, and then there's bad. Yeah. And Kern was bad. So you went with the unknown of whether Siposs will be bad or not. I didn't have a problem with the decision they made because I had just seen enough of Kern to go, hey, maybe McMullen could punt. I just get anybody out there.
I would say they were both bad as punters. So it was bad versus bad, and stay with the bad that's at least not rusty. That's what I would argue. I'm not saying Brett Kern was punting well by any stretch of the imagination.
Here is the underlying question that I think needs to be answered. Why can't the Eagles judge punters? Well, whose job is that? Is that Michael Clay? Do we just drop it at his doorstep? Is he in on the scouting meetings and leading up to the draft? And is he going to be the guy going through tapes of other punters when a punter gets released this week that the Eagles may or may not judge is better than Siposs? Who's making those calls for the Eagles?
Well, Howie's making the calls, but yeah, obviously
who's he listening to? Is Howie breaking down the tape of the 64 punters in the NFL right now?
Knowing Howie, probably. I don't think he's qualified to do it, but I mean, he's making these decisions is what I'm trying to say. But Michael's certainly involved, not to the degree that, like I always say, there's levels. Like when Jeff Stoutland says, I want a player, they kind of defer to him. And then there's levels down the coaching staff. And not everybody's obviously on Jeff's level. Michael's probably in the middle. And Tyler Brown's actually the kicking specialist, Randy Brown's son. He's the kicking specialist, both punter and kicker. Look, it's another position they don't value, number one. And they're probably right. Have they taken it too far? I don't know. Aaron Siposs, I thought was a good signing when they originally brought him in because he was in Detroit. Detroit, for those who don't know, is one of the best punters in football. Jack Box. He really battled him hard. He looked like the best non-NFL punter. And I said, that makes sense. Bring that guy in. He lost to Jack Box. Everybody. That's like losing to Justin Tucker. I mean, slightly exaggerating because Justin's the best all time, but he was the best punter in the NFL. And so, and he did really well. And obviously they just had him in camp to rest Box's leg, but it made sense to me. And then he got here and he's had some ups, more downs. I don't think he's been terrible the whole time. I think that's overstated. I think he made a bad kick in the Super Bowl. He was out. I don't think he's a great punter. He's probably bottom 10, but I don't think he's terrible. I think that's overrated. And when you add in the holding aspect that I just did, I think that's good enough for the Eagles. That's the mentality. That's the sentiment.
And I'm just saying, I hope it doesn't bite him in the butt like it did last year in the last game of the season.
I'm with you, Jody, but I also understand John's logic. And I just think that, like John said at the beginning, they don't expect to punt much.
Yeah.
But all it takes is one shank or one
and a big spot. And a big spot.
And it changes a game, as we saw.
But he was also out for 7 weeks or whatever it was.
You hope he's healthy last night. And
you hope he's healthy. Well, his numbers, by the way, because you got that kid in Tennessee now. What the hell's his name? Stone something, who set an NFL record. He punts it like 53 yards a punt. These guys have gotten so egregiously good. I just looked down. He had 3 punts, 45-yard average, 45-yard net. Mm-hmm. That's not terrible. No. That's not terrible. It's compared to.
He had a 45-yard net with one that only went about 35 yards in the air.
He had 3 punts for a 45-yard average and a 45-yard net and a 49 long. So his longest punt was 49. It's not terrible.
The one that was shorter did bounce.
Yeah, I thought it was. I would have bet, without looking it up, I would have bet on less than that.
I was with you on that too.
And John, oh, by the way, all these new, young, great guys. Why can't the Eagles find one of them?
Wow.
If there are these new young punters who are blasting at 65 yards, wouldn't that be like a smart idea for the Eagles to try and come up with one of these guys?
They don't care. It's another position that they don't value. And, sometimes they take it too far. I would agree with that. I say it all the time at linebacker. I think they take it too far at linebacker, but they don't value the position. I agree that you shouldn't spend a lot of time thinking about punter. We spent more time talking about it than they think about it, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, look, there's a bunch of better punters than Aaron Cepas. I'm not going to say there isn't, but I don't think he's the worst punter in the history of the world either. I think that was
Brett Kern, the guy he replaced going into.
Yeah, well, that's true. He's better. Ryan Stonehouse, bothering me. He set an NFL record last year, and he was went to Colorado State, undrafted. So you can find these guys. 53.1. That was his average per punt. That's 53.1.
That is very impressive. All right, let's talk about things that will actually have an impact on the outcome of the game next week against the Patriots. Jalen Hurts played the same number of snaps in preseason that Scott Grayson played.
Yeah. And they were quality snaps.
I understand.
I think Scott played more because he got reps last night.
Yeah.
And there's a new box show. You got to tell us about the new box show. But you got reps. You got more reps than Jalen Hurts, I would argue, is what I was trying to say. Go ahead, Jody. I'm sorry.
I was just going to suggest that no issues with this, right? That he was not the only quarterback in the National Football League to not play any snap. There's few, and then there's 0, and he got a 0. But we're all cool with that, right?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little old school here. I would have loved to have seen the starters get one series last night. That's me being nitpicky. And sure enough, one of them tweaks an ankle, and I look like an idiot. So, I understand the logic, and I'm not sitting here throwing a major fit complaining about it. I just think there's something to be said for the live bullets. And I understand in these joint practices you get some of that. But there's not the fear of being hit and taken down and dropped and having to feel, I feel like when you choose to do this, you also then have to accept that the first half of that first game, which is in New England this year, is going to be messy. It's just going to be messy in terms of timing. And, if Derek Barnett gets out there, we all know he loves to jump before the snap. You're going to get sloppy football in that first half of the first game. And, that's my expectation. So I'm setting the bar low, right?
Yeah.
But this offense they're all back. I mean, they all know each other. They've been working for more than a year together. So all my little bit about timing really shouldn't be a problem. And you'd like to think, at least on the offensive side of the ball, that in terms of timing and that type of thing, that they're going to be okay. And I have faith in Jalen. He got the contract. He's that leader. He's finally getting that recognition, I think, nationally that he failed to get from a lot of places, even into the Super Bowl last year. Now it's a matter of you've got to play with that target on your back now. And that's what I'm going to watch this year is, okay, now you've got that target. You've got that paycheck. You've got all that. How do you come out in week 1? Because it all matters, and it all starts right there. And how do you lead this team up there in Foxborough with the GOAT standing on the sidelines, being honored before the game, and it's Tom Brady Day. And okay, fine. And I don't expect that to bother him. But in terms of what I'm kind of getting off tangent here. I would have liked to have seen like one series last night. Just go through the full warm-ups, knowing you're going to go out there and take the field for one series with your guys, and that's it. Take the pads off, enjoy the rest of the night. But I don't have any doubt that they'll be okay, and that offense will be fine, and the defense, for that matter, will be fine and ready to go.
The only thing I would argue, Scott, is the one serious thing I don't get. Like, if you want to be Andy Reid and you want to play him for a half, I'm with you. All right, I get that. But what does one series do? Like, I look at Marcus Mariota.
Last night, what did that accomplish?
Yeah. And at S Grayson Box 29, make sure you follow Scott on Twitter. Or X, as we call it now. And by the way, tell us about the new box show. But before you do that, with Marcus, like, the Eagles scored, right? He got the short field with the Devin Allen kickoff return. And maybe, Jody, you can answer this because we were at the game. It sure looked like Kenny Moore should have intercepted that one pass. I think it was to Deion Kane. That was his only completion. It was like a 20.
No, it's a good pass. He threw it in a tight window and got it there.
From the top, it looked like Kenny Moore just Calais Ringo'd it. Like, he saw the ball coming and just didn't react and had plenty of time to jump in front of it. And that's a pretty good player, Kenny Moore. That's one of their better players. It looked to me like he should have picked it off. I don't know what it looked to you, Scott.
No, it's funny you said that. I thought it was a bad pass. And I'm sure you noticed this, John. The frustrating thing in the press box last night was the game was on such a delay. It was like 3 plays behind. Yeah. So I would look up to see a replay to get the angle that Jody was watching.
Yeah.
And by the time you got it, you were 3 plays later. And it just was hard to do. So I trust Jody's analysis that it was a good throw. From up top, I agree with you. It looked like the route could have been jumped and taken. But
hey, we've taken enough pot shots at Mariota. He completes a pass. I'm not going to go, oh, that was a pass. He got the completion.
I only brought it up because, there's a feel-good aspect of the one drive. The offense scored, but they had to go 27 yards. And I brought up that pass was kind of hinky. Maybe it wasn't as hinky as I thought. What does it matter? My overriding point was not Marcus. It was
one series,
one drive mean.
Yeah, that I agree with you.
Yeah.
And by the way, the other pass Mariota threw could have been pass interference.
Yeah.
So he goes 1 for 2. I thought he could have been 2 for 2. But again, it's only 2 for 2. I didn't even bother doing 2 for 2.
Yeah.
That's the question we have at this stage.
Yeah.
All right, give us the breakdown on the new Fox show. What are we talking about here?
Well, you'll see it starting up the night after the first game. So September 11th. It's called the Fantastic Sports Show with a PH. Fantastic. It'll start. It comes on at 11:30, and the idea is to break down the topics of the day. In many cases, it'll be that case on the first show. It'll be breaking down the first game from the Eagles and looking ahead to the short week to the second game, and as well as Phillies. We'll hit multiple topics. We'll have guests on every night.
Need a Phillies run. Need a Phillies run for Fox 29.
Yeah. We enjoyed it last year. It was something. And so it'll be that. You'll have Breland Moore, Jason Martinez discussing all that. I'll be on there occasionally as well, and we'll bat it around like you guys do, but with all the different topics out there. And
Sundays, what time?
It's every night, 11:30.
Every night, Jody.
Monday
through
every
Friday.
night.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday. All right, we will keep an eye out for that. Scotty G, we appreciate you getting up with us today. Thank you much, sir. John will see you plenty during the season. I'll see you when you come on and join us here on Birds 365. Thanks for doing it today.
Yeah, and I went up to John last night in the press box, and Jody, let me say it here. I apologize for missing my tea time yesterday morning with you guys.
Not a problem. Today would have been a tougher slot to book. So you actually did us a favor. Once we got through it yesterday, we said, "Oh, Scotty did us a favor by volunteering for tomorrow."
All right. Well, I'll take the win. Thank you.
Thank you. That is Scott Grayson from Fox 29, as sports director here with us on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac. We got Game Day Franklin. Or post-game Franklin.
Post-game Chris.
Post-game Chris. Franklin's going to join us in less than 25 minutes from now.
We might get some birds chirping. Although it's cloudy, it was raining. Probably not.
Which was weird. I know we got to get the break. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I felt bad going to bed last night at the game ended at 11:10, somewhere thereabouts. You know what time it ended? Yeah, it was after 11 o'clock, but it was not much after. And I went to bed 10 minutes after that. There was nothing else. No baseball. Phillies weren't playing, so I didn't really need to see anything. I'd watch the entire game. I didn't stick around for any of the post-game stuff because it was as all-important a game as it was. So I kind of felt bad that I went to bed as early as I did, knowing McMullen had 2 more hours of work ahead of him. Yeah. And then you know what? I couldn't sleep last night. It was my conscience. Now I'm getting a good night's sleep, but Johnny Mac's going to be up tired in the morning. I slept like crap last night. You know what time I got up today? 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. Yeah.
And I couldn't sleep.
Now, normally I get that, my wife is in South Carolina. I mentioned that. So I was guilty all night because my dog was by herself, and she's getting older. She doesn't like to be by herself. So I'm racing home. I'm trying to get back for the dog, and we were out. I normally I'm up way early, but today I had to scramble. That's why I got the hat on. I was out when the head hit the pillow. I was out.
Done. I couldn't. I got up 4 o'clock, came downstairs to the man cave, got my setup. I put on Impact Wrestling and fell asleep on the couch watching Impact Wrestling.
By the way,
at 4:30 in the morning.
Speaking of, I gotta get my wrestling note in. Bray Wyatt passed away at age 36 for wrestling fans. Had a heart attack, COVID related. Was out. Had some prior heart issues, got COVID, was really serious. So, I joke about that a lot because the NFL sort of said, all right, COVID's over, but it still exists. And when you see somebody 36 years old, kids, his wife, Beyonce, I think, is Jose Offerman's daughter, the old baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
Sad story. Sad.
I saw that as well last night. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We're coming back. I got a couple things Eagle related and a couple national things. Jerry Jones opening mouth and inserting foot again.
What do you do now? I missed it.
You don't know the Jerry story?
No.
Oh my God. Read it during the quick break that we had. going to the defense of one of his players with a completely illogical stance.
Yeah.
We'll talk about when we come back. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. You got Mac and Mac here on Birds 365.